G'day, Ratbags. How you doing? Oh, sorry, it's meant to be like this. I can't do duck lips. I don't know why. I've just never been able to do that. So that's my version of fucking stupid duck lips. Anyway, I don't know if we need the pop screen. I'm a little bit late. Very sorry, but it's been an evening of tension and drama here at the village. Goodness me, I had a bit of a moment of panic. Hang on, I'm going to do a sound check. Yep, there we go. We have going out audio. Excellent. Oh, mate. Anyway, tonight is one of the coldest nights so far this year. Okay, we're pretty much coming right up to the very pointy end of winter at the moment, and I live quite close to, where it not that far away from where it snows. And so sorry, we're going a little tangent tonight because I'm a little out of sorts. And so anyway, it's forecast to be a very snappy one tonight, and we're advised that we may, the hills that we have around us when we wake up in the morning, there may be a little sprinkling of snow on top of them. So you can imagine it's quite snappy outside. The fog, we get very, very thick fog and mist here, and it started coming in before it even got dark. And so anyway, Wednesday is the village, sippers and then dinner night. And so, everyone's socialing, la 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 la, we washed up, everything's great, everyone goes home to their freezing little cot, with the heaters and cozied up as best they can. I basically started working on my new video, doing some new voice clips, and I had been working quite solidly for, well over an hour, and had laid some good tracks down, and all of a sudden, the entire village went black. And obviously, somehow, for some reason, we had lost all power. And so, so I put my jacket on and my Wellington boots, and I got my flashlight and my torch or whatever, and off we went to go and do the checks. And yes, the power, it wasn't just my cabin. So, there's a hierarchy. It wasn't just my cabin. Yep, it was. And looking around, yep, okay, everything is dark except for the solar lights. And yep, go over to the next one. Yep, that's dead. Go over to the next one. Yep, that's dead. Open the thingo, blah, blah, blah. So I could hear a couple of the other residents over at the other. There's like a couple of different power box areas over, So we ended up meeting up. Anyway, so something had tripped the main power fuse to the village, and so we were ascertained that it wasn't outside the park, so there hadn't been something fall on a power line down the road or anything like that. So we flipped the switch, power came back onto the village, and we were like, okay, it's staying on. So I went back, I traipsed over to the person who puts out the PA messages over the text PA that we've got, just to let them know, because that's the person everybody calls when something happens. So I went over to, do a grapevine message for that, and basically we're like waiting. Okay, the power's holding, it seems fine. Okay, so after about 5 or 10 minutes, however long, we've gone cool, and so I've left that cabin and I've started home. I've tromped up my ramp, and I've just pull my Wellington boots off and open the thing up, step in, it's all cozy, da. I'm panicking. I don't want to turn my computer on because I think that I've just lost all the work that I've just done because everything just went dead. There was no time to start anything. It was gone. And And so I got in, put my little freaking house slippers on, took my coat off, and then the entire village went dead again. And so tromped out again, got a bit more information, went and checked some other things, flipped the fuse again, power went on, was held for about 10, 15 minutes, and the bloody thing went dead again. And I was kind of starting to tear my hair out at this stage because it's bloody cold tonight. There are over 50 people here that live here, and all of them are quite, it's an over 55. It was over 50s when I moved here, so I kind of sneaked in, but now it's an over 55 only village, and you can imagine there are quite a lot of people here in their 60s, 70s, 80s, and beyond. And tonight is not the night to, be in a cabin with no heating, because you would end up with water running down the walls on the inside. You know what I mean? The condensation here is insane. So it is actually quite dangerous. And we also have one gentleman here who permanently is on, an oxygen pipe. And, he does have an emergency backup generator. But if it's the middle of the night, or if he can't, something happens, or someone's always got to go and check on him to make sure that he's been able to get his backup generator started in time. All that to say that the power going out on a winter's night in our village is actually of some safety concern. Anyway, we finally I think we figured out what it was. We had to send a PA message out just going, oi, somebody is pulling too much power in their cabin. Can you please go and, kind of check your heaters and check and just, because whoever's doing that, you're, sorry, but you're cutting the power to the village. And so, I think whoever, obviously it's been holding for a while. But anyway, I've been putting off doing the stream because I've been really it took me like an hour to even get the guts up to turn the bloody computer on, because I pretty much had a little mini meltdown when it all went dead. I was like, the feeling when you've just put in some solid work and then all of a sudden it's gone. Doesn't have to be computer work. It could be anything, something that you've put effort into, and that you feel like you've actually, it's not the start anymore. You're pretty deep in, And I've chosen to be a little bit ambitious with this video, and I'm adding a whole nother section to it, and anyway, I don't want to bang on about like blah 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 blah. Okay, it's all about me. It's all about me, all right? It's just been one of those days. I went because it's been raining, and today we had a bit of a reprieve from the rain, and then it's going to come back in again for about a week. I thought, okay, I've got to get out of the cabin. A little bit of cabin fever, so I had to get out of the cabin, and so I went down into the local, the big village, the one we call town, the one that's got the train station, and the War Memorial, and the corner store. So I went there, and it's got a nice little park and stuff in there by the War Memorial, and there's a little half court in there. So I go down, since I bought the basketball, I try to go most days. If I don't go down to Garfield and have a skate at the park and a little hoop shoot thing, because they've got a little combo there, I just go to Longwarry and just slob around their half court for a bit, just so that to get my body moving. And I mean, I knew I was having one of those days where everything was just like not quite, do you know what I mean? And I was a bit off balance and a bit out, and and it was pretty funny because I pretty much shot probably 3 out of every 10 shots. Like, even had a hope of going through the freaking ring. It was pretty funny. But anyway, it was good because I got to move around and had a good old laugh at myself for being useless. It was pretty, but I didn't feel that bad because I was making myself play left-handed because I don't want to get blah, 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 but I've got a thing that's never, my fucking neck's falling apart. The bones in one side of my neck are kind of cactus. Anyway, blah, blah, blah. So, it gets it's a bit hectic. But so anyway, but I am pretty ambidextrous. So, like, I was like, if I'm going to be useless, I might as well just play left-handed, and then maybe I won't feel so bad about it. I don't feel bad about it anyway. I don't really get, do you know what I mean? I've been a coach for too long now to not know, learning processes and physical processes in general. And I don't get too upset with myself anymore if I'm not performing as well as I know I can, or all of that kind of thing, So anyway, gosh, I've raved on for ages and ages. Where's the book? All right, let's be with the book. I might actually is everything good? Yep. I don't need to go to the bathroom or anything. I think we're good. All right, don't worry. I'll timestamp. I'll timestamp in the pinned comment so you can skip all of this gibberish. But that's the other thing, because the power might bloody go out any minute. Basically, because I was thinking about, I'll stream on my phone, because I'd put my phone on the charger, so I knew that it was fully charged up, and, yada, yada, yada. But then there was this whole thing about setting up to do that, because I was going to sit on the bed and do it. I was just doing my head in, man. So anyway, I thought, bugger it, we'll have a go. We'll do this. We'll use the power that may or may not stay on, but I just could not deal with spending time putting the lights on and all that kind of stuff in the background, just in case we ended up with just in case it all just went sideways. The curtains. It's bloody so cold. Like, I've got a blanket. I've got my freaking poncho over me, and that's with the heater on. Okay. All right. Let's huddle up around the microphone like it's some kind of fucking campfire. I don't know why I was doing that. Oh no. All right. Like, the weird thing is that I thought I was fine. Do you know what I mean? And obviously, it's whatever. It's cool. Like, it's fucking cool. I don't care. Shit's getting done. I just want to get this video done. Oh crap! All right, the goggles are going on. Here we go. I even practiced this song when I thought I was going to do the stream through my phone. I even practiced a song to do as the intro song, because I'm trying to get that together, but then I decided it was a bit too late to be, making musical noise, etc. etc. Oh, wow, look how much through the book we are. We're so close to the end, look. Hardly any's. Less than 1/4, I would say. What say yous? Alright, anyway, here we go. New chapter. I'm really sorry about that long, piffly-paffly, rambling freaking intro. There's all these other streams I want to do, so... this isn't the place to talk about it. Let's get into it then, shall we? Alright. New chapter. Contemplating treachery. Horror movies. Horror moves. The previous night, after Rachel had told Sly that she'd think about his unusual chat-up line, he had very considerately left her with what he hoped would be sufficient evidence to bring her around to his way of thinking. The evidence was in the form of a video film, and it made your average horror movie look like something intended for Granny and the wee ones. Any Hollywood producer worth his salt who had chanced to see Sly's video would have quickly realised that all the stuff about monsters exploding out of people's stomachs and small girls being raped by the devil was totally out of the window. Once you've been chilled and thrilled by the story of the Sands chemical plant screwing up the Rhine, or the slow death of the Baikal Lake, well, it no longer seems particularly worrying that a group of teenagers on a holiday camp gets cut to bits with chainsaws because they're too stupid not to go down to the old boat shed. Well, the Sandoz and Baikal stories were just two of the many that were touched upon in the videos that Rachel watched with increasing despair. It opened with the bleak announcement that it was a top secret preparation to be viewed by members of the Stark Consortium only. Sly was still in the room when this message came on. "I'm not a member of the Stark Consortium," Rachel protested. "Once you've watched that, you will be," smiled Sly, and then he left her to it. The show opened with a smart aleck-looking fellow in an eye patch addressing the camera. Professor Durf announced that the time had come to leave, that the long-feared moment of truth was finally upon the Stark Consortium. "I can think of no better illustration to underline the urgency of our situation than to suggest that were God to attempt to take out an insurance policy on the world, he would not be able to afford the premiums." This was Dev's little joke. He decided to kick off with a gag just to show that despite things being in a terrible state, he at least could maintain his suave intellectual detachment. "What an arrogant creep," thought Rachel. Durf followed his little gag with a warning against a false sense of security engendered by current political cant. "Of late, certain politicians have been attempting to play the green card in their grubby scramble for public support. Believe me, such tokenism is entirely cynical. The situation can never be reversed whilst market forces remain superior to political will." Let's repeat that. The situation can never be reversed whilst market forces remain superior to political will. The politicians have always left us alone, and they will always leave us alone because we pay the piper and we call the tune. Much of what followed, Rachel already knew something about, but the sheer weight of current catastrophe certainly took her by surprise. It could not have been a more unmitigated tale of doom, gloom, and impotent despair if it had been written by Dostoevsky. That was bad pronunciation, sorry. I mean, I'm an Australian. I'm always going to pronounce Dostoevsky really badly. All right. Let's leave old Dosty to it, shall we? Okay. Yeah, couldn't have been a more unmitigated tale of gloom and impotent despair if it had been written by Dostoevsky. It started on a fairly light note, briefly detailing the world's smaller disasters, like the 1986 Sandoz chemical leak in Switzerland. Well, this minor incident, which at the same time was entirely overshadowed by the World Cup, concerned the accidental discharge of 30 tonnes of toxic waste into the Rhine. Of course, 30 tonnes doesn't sound like that much. The lead singers of heavy metal bands can sometimes weigh as much as that. But the seriousness of a toxic leak depends entirely on how toxic the leak is. Well, in the case of Sandoz, the words very, very spring to mind, and then spring out again as being scarcely adequate, and then spring back again for the want of a better alternative. Put it this way, if the universe is very, very big, then the Sandoz leak was very, very toxic. That 30 tonnes leaked from one factory into one river It swept through France, Germany and Holland and killed every single living organism in its path. The catalogue of disaster unfolded before Rachel. She learnt of the Baikal. Situated in the Soviet Union, it is the world's largest lake. The Russian people harbour a love for it of huge and mystical proportions, which is rather apt because the lake is itself of huge and mystical proportions, being 1.5 kilometres deep and containing, according to some, 20% of the world's fresh water. Fresh, of course, being a loose description for something that is being filled with shit and industrial waste. Everything that Sly had attempted to impress upon Rachel unfolded before her on the TV. The message was always the same. The myriad destruction in every single area of the natural world must soon provoke a total breakdown. The time had come to bugger off. Rachel's head was numb. It couldn't have been more numb if she'd woken up in the middle of the night to discover that she'd been sleeping on it in an awkward position. So this was the way the world was to end. Not with a bang, not with a whimper, but with retching nausea as the teeming billions struggled for their final gulps of food and air before sinking forever into the stench, filth, disease and slime that would certainly be our final environment in the huge rubbish dump and toilet that we have created out of paradise. Lords of Creation. Sounds like a song, doesn't it? Like, Lords of Creation, Lords of Creation, wah-bum-bum-bum, Lords of Creation, and destruction. Right, anyway, sorry. Lords of Creation. It's a thing. It's not a choice. I was just born an idiot. Professor Durf was speaking again. As you all know, as principal creators of the world's wealth, the one human creation, I'm happy to say, that remains untainted and unpolluted, we've known for many years now that were human activity to continue unchecked, it would and must lead to oblivion. We declined to interfere, though, believing social engineering to be immoral. We all hoped, of course, that market forces would produce a solution, that ecologically responsible activity would somehow become profitable. As we know, it hasn't, and that's just too bad. We had a duty to progress, to make money and create wealth. That was our bounden mission. If the earth had to die in the defence of a free market economy, then 'tis a noble death. Rachel glanced around for a bucket. This man was the human equivalent of sticking 2 fingers down your neck. Now is the time to look to the future, the televised Durf continued. Now is the time to board the Starks, the Star Arcs. It is fitting that you, the world's richest men, should lead the human race to fresh fields and pastures new. For in the time of the first ark, the people worshipped God, and hence Noah, the most pious of men, was chosen to survive the flood and shape the future. In modern times, the people worship money. Money, God, in that it has been deified and can clearly be said to rule our lives. Hence, as I say, it is fitting that you, the super rich, those who have worshipped money with a diligence and conviction far above the faith of lesser men, that you should board the Star Arcs and carry our faith to a new civilization beyond the flood, on the moon. A difficult offer to refuse. Clearly, Rachel's dilemma was a moral one. No, excuse me. Let me start that again. A difficult offer to refuse. Clearly, Rachel's moral dilemma was a considerable one. Such was the depth of her concentration that she scarcely noticed the thunder in the sky which signalled the arrival of Nagasu's final deliveries. On the one hand, she was disgusted. It was worse than the time she'd inadvertently seen someone pick their nose and eat it. These repulsive people, having made a very large contribution to screwing up the world, now intended to slink off and leave everyone literally in the shit. Rachel would no more wish to associate with this type of human slug than would voluntarily set up home in a nest of game show hosts. And yet, one thing was certain. Rachel no longer doubted the vanishing point scenario. Everybody was going to die, and die pretty unpleasantly at that. Except, of course, not everybody. There was, it seemed, a flight out. And because a man with the hots for her had got a couple of tickets, well, she was being offered salvation. She played the situation around and around in her mind. Strangely, she was not over-exercised about the imminent end of the earth. Well, despite the fact that she believed in it now, it just still seemed like a story. What Rachel was wrestling with was simply the moral dilemma. The choice between a pointless act of suicidal courage and an act of pragmatic self-preservation. It was clear that no useful purpose could be served by her staying, and she flattered herself that she deserved to live as much, if not more, than some bimbo that Moorcock might choose to take if she declined to go. The morals of the situation were by no means cut and dried. Rachel was no more guilty than anyone else. It wasn't her fault that we killed the world. Hey, Bubbles. You stay fabulous too, my friend. Well, she kept on thinking, wondering what she would do, wondering where her friends were, wondering what she thought about Sly. And so the long night wore on, the last night before the stark countdown began. In the morning, Sly returned from his meeting with Durf and Tyrone, where he had discovered TTO and the fatal sandwich. It was decision time. End of chapter. New chapter. The tables turn. Getting tied up in knots. Covering his erstwhile captors with one hand, Zimmerman cut his comrade's bindings. "Man, I've been hanging out on that roof for 24 hours, he remarked. "I don't recommend that kind of shit to anybody." "Zen is the only way to deal with trips like that, Zimmerman," said Walter. "I guess you must have found your centre and relaxed into a meditative balance." "I killed 2 lizards and ate them," said Zimmerman. Walter agreed that this was one way of passing the time and that everybody had to do their own thing, man. By now, Zim had released all 3 prisoners. He dragged a chair into the corner of the room and stood on it, and this gave him the optimum available field of fire with which to cover operations while the others used their bindings to tie up Tyrone, DuPont and the guards. This done, Zimmerman inspected the knots. "CD, man, this is a double bow," he protested. "It's the only one I know, Zim. Works fine on shoes," said CD, who had not really recovered from his interrogation and still looked like he could have run a 3-bar electric fire off him. Zimmerman attempted to explain the art of knot tying to CD, taking the two ends of the rope and creating a complicated system of loops and bows. This is a knot, man. You have to make a tunnel, then the train goes through the tunnel, right? And then these two ends here, these are the people, right? And you put them perpendicular to the train and you wind the track around them, right? And then you gather up the slack, right? And that's the station buffet? Inquired CD. Well, no, man, I don't think so, but I guess we can call it that because actually, rules are just mind control, said Zimmerman, who, it must be remembered, was only lucid when he absolutely had to be. Well, you gather up the station buffet, stuff it into the train. Oh, yeah, that's right. It's the coal, not the station buffet. It's coal, right? Okay, so you stuff the coal into the train and you pull the train back through the tunnel, man, and then you jerk the signal tight and dig. The dude will never escape. As Zimmerman said this, the knot fell apart and the two ends of the cord fell gently to the floor. Oh, maybe you forgot the driver, man, suggested Walter. When I was in the Boy Scouts, I remember there was always a driver. You're in the Boy Scouts, man? Said Zimmerman, surprised. Well, yeah, like for a week, Walter replied defensively, until I discovered it was just a fascistic social engineering. Anyway, man, what's your beef? You were a fucking Marine commando. Oh, yeah, Walter, that's right. Dwell in the past, said Zimmerman. Mrs. Colburn tried to restore order. I can do knots, said Mrs. Colburn. I'll tie 'em up. Hey, listen, lady, I can do knots, right? Said Zimmerman in an offended tone. I mean, knots, they're one of my big things. Ha! Said Mrs. Colburn, and even Mad Zimmerman had to admit that she had a point. Look, be sensible, protested Tyrone. You can't possibly get away. It's many miles to the wire. There are guards and cameras everywhere. And even if you did get through, where will you go then? We own Bullens Creek, lock, stock and barrel, and everywhere else for that matter. You're in the middle of a desert. What can you possibly achieve? Chilly. Oh yeah, that's right. Bring us down, said Walter. Make it all sound totally depressing, why don't you? You have a real attitude problem, Mr. Tyrone. You have to take a more positive trip. It's just like a biorhythm thing. Listen, interjected CD. I don't care what there is to face out there. While we were in your care, Mr. Tyrone, I got plugged into the wall and turned into a light bulb. Personally, I'll take my chances. Hey, they're all tied up good now, said Mrs. Colburn. Further interrogation. Okay, said Zimmerman. Nearly time to go. But first, we need a few answers. After all, I reckon that's why we came here in the first place, to find out what's going on. So, what's the scene, Daddy-O? What goes down here? Why the rocket fuel, the launch silos, the guns and stuff? Man, what is this trip? There was a sullen silence from Tyrone and DuPont. The guards obviously said nothing because they knew nothing. So you ain't going to tell us nothing then? Continued Zimmerman. And still there was a sullen silence. CD, would you be so kind as to pass me the electrified wool, please? Said Zimmerman, taking care to hold it by the leads, Dick. There was a surprised silence at this turn of events. CD crossed the room and picked up the instrument of torture. It crackled a little, and a few tiny sparks flew from it. Well, Tyrone and DuPont were thinking. Tyrone was thinking about guts, honour, and not being pushed around. DuPont was thinking that this was a mad hippie who'd recently nearly bitten his nose off. We're building a colony fleet of rockets to emigrate to the moon because the Earth is in rapid and terminal ecologically decline, blurted DuPont, and Tyrone gave him a disgusted stare. The ironic thing was that DuPont's craven cowardice did him no good at all because obviously no one believed him. Excuse me. You sure do have to hand it to these fellas. laughed Mrs. Colburn. "When it comes to their thinking up really shitty excuses for what they're up to, they are the very, very best. The moon? I reckon that's even better than the story about building a hotel." There was general laughter, and then Zimmerman seemed to snap. "Now let's have the fucking truth!" he screamed, making everybody jump at once. "Right now!" He grabbed the electric sponge from CD and held it so that the edge was millimetres away from the whimpering DuPont's face. "It's own medicine time, man." Zimmerman's eyes were wild and fearful. The veins on his hands stood out firm as he gripped the clamps of the jump leads. "You're gonna burn, man. You are gonna fucking burn." Walter had no cause to love DuPont, and even less so did CD, but they both felt that Zimmerman was becoming somewhat alarming. "Hey, Zim, baby. Hey, Zim, this is your man Walter. Listen, you got to cool it, you know. I mean, we cannot start torturing people because, like, in many ways, you know, that puts us on the same level as them, right? Which kind of begs the question, what are we fighting for?" "Yeah," CD chimed in. "He who sups with the devil should use a long spoon and all that." "Give him a tickle with it, eh? The bastard deserves it," said Mrs. Colburn, representing the hawk, so to speak. Zimmerman just went wild. He screamed that everybody, and he meant everybody, should shut the fuck up. And whilst Walter mumbled something about hurting a guy's feelings, Zim hurled what was left in the jug of water at the wall, and then he dragged the electric wool back and forth across it in huge sweeps, causing great showers of sparks to burst further from it. "We have no time, man!" he shouted. "We have no time for chicken shit liberals!" We had a psychiatrist popped his head around the door at that moment and taken a peek at Zimmerman. He would have instructed his secretary to cancel all calls for the next decade because he had a really big job on. Thanks, Bobby. "We have been shot at, imprisoned, sexually abused." Well, last one was a surprise to everybody, but Zimmerman was employing the degree of dramatic licence traditionally afforded to the psychotically insane. "My main lady, Mrs. Colburn, has been hassled by the Hitler heads," he continued, pausing only to kick Tyrone in the chest so that the chair in which he was tied toppled over backwards. "And I want to know why, man. I want to be hip to what is going down here. And this dude," he flung a fist across DuPont's face, "is going to lay it on me, man. He is going to divulge the whole vibe, or the lights are going to dim all over Australia because he will be soaking up most of the national grid." Zimmerman spat on the wire to make it crackle. "Now, lay it on me, man." And he punctuated each word by sweeping the mesh at arm's length in front of a weeping DuPont, missing him by a hair's breadth. And a thin hair at that. Not the thick, coarse, lush kind, but the sort that comes from a person that you always think is going bald. Terrified. Even if they aren't. DuPont was, understandably, terrified and also rather confused. All this dig, dude, hip and vibe talk was new to him. He'd spent the 60s as an administrator at a Swiss finishing school. "What does he want?" DuPont pleaded through his tears. CD jumped in. "He wants to know what you're building here, and please tell him quick." "I swear you'll fry, man. I swear," added Zimmerman unnecessarily. DuPont nearly had a heart attack. "I've told you," he bawled, his cheeks wet. "We're building a colony fleet of rockets to emigrate to the moon because the Earth is in rapid and terminal ecological decline. It's true. It's true. Please believe me. Please, it's true." "Like fuck it is," said Zimmerman, suddenly calming down and turning off the electricity at the wall. "But you're a brave bastard, man, that's for sure. I took you to the edge. Nothing left to do after that but fry you. And I'm no pig. I'll leave that to you." Well, the tension in the room relaxed somewhat. Well, you certainly had me fooled, mate, said CD. I really thought you'd gone completely mad for a minute there. Well, I did go completely mad, said Zimmerman. But I'm completely mad anyway, so it doesn't make a difference. Oh, Zimmy, I relate so much. Anyway, back to the story. Well, you should have given it to one of them, said Mrs. Colboon. Now they know you won't do it, none of them will talk, and maybe we'll never know. If you want to do it, Mrs. Colboon, be my guest. Zimmerman offered her the jump leads, but she declined. I ain't the damn loony Vietnam hero, she said. You are, Zimmerman. It's your job to do any electrocuting that needs to be done. Well, I'm not gonna, so let's get out of here, he replied. Hang on, what are we going to do about Rachel? Protested CD. And suddenly, CD's mind flooded with horrible fears and suspicions. What the hell had that man Moorcock taken her off for? End of chapter. How are we doing for time? 43. All right, my voice. Right, this chapter's really short. We're going to do this one. Yeah, this chapter's really short. We're going to do this one, but then I've got to stop because you can probably hear it. I've done a lot of voice work today, and it's midnight, and my voice is protesting me. It's telling me to have a rest. I'm just going to tell it to shut up for 5 more minutes. Or no, shut up and keep talking for 5 more minutes. Okay, here we go. New chapter. Decision time. Or as I like to call it, meltdown time. Anyway, here we go. Decision time. Sly knocked on the door of his quarters. He'd not seen Rachel since the previous night when he'd shown her around the launch site and left her with the videos to consider his proposal. She was standing at the window when he entered, watching the intense activity, which the impending commencement of the departure countdown had made all the more intense. Those are the rockets, the star arcs, he said. We've started preparing them for liftoff. Really? Oh, I thought you were putting in some new plumbing, replied Rachel, who may have been seeing too much of Mrs. Colboon. We're going real soon, probably in 8 days. Apparently the food chains are collapsing. It's Russian roulette every time you have a sandwich, said Sly, ignoring her sarcasm. Better make up your mind, Rachel. There's only going to be one trip. Those who go will be gone forever, and those who stay will stay forever. The only difference being that those who go will still be breathing. Breathing bottled air in a tiny cage. Rachel was trying to protest, but she knew that she was wavering. Don't knock it. I expect it will be welcome enough when that's all there is. Besides, Sly continued, that will only be for a year or two. Slowly but surely, we'll expand the cage, and with that will come a less artificial environment, with oxygen from plants rather than bottles. But you can't just go, can you? Again, she felt herself assailed by doubt. Well, I'm assured we can, said Sly. I suppose maybe it'll screw up, but as I hope you've now accepted, the alternative is certain death. I know it sounds cowardly, and I suppose it is, but at least somebody will be getting out. Would you rather we went out and picked a couple of 100 hippies and dropouts? Would that be a better, more moral thing to do? Who do you love? Look, said Rachel, getting down to the main point. Why me? I mean, a new life on another planet, it's a lot to offer a girl you hardly know. Well, who would you take? Asked Sly. What do you mean? Replied Rachel. Exactly what I say. Who would you take? He continued. You're not particularly attached. You have to take someone, or else you'll be all alone in space. So, who? Well, said Rachel with hesitation. Not so easy, is it? Sure, at first you think that there must be someone. You think, after all, I'm very fond of any number of people. But that's not enough, is it? If, despite knowing them well, you're only fond of them and not in love with them, then there's a reason for that. sides of their personalities that you can't avoid on Earth, you couldn't get away from, so that you can avoid on Earth, you couldn't get away from when you're drinking out of the same bottle of air. So, for a single, essential, lonely man, there is no clear choice. In fact, there's no choice at all. I simply don't know anyone I love enough to take. In fact, I'll go further. Despite being fond of quite a few women, I love them so insufficiently that I actively don't want to take them. And me? Asked Rachel, seizing the obvious line of questioning like an ace lawyer. Well, I don't know that I love you, but I certainly fancy the knickers off you, and besides, you're a spunky type. Now, I'm a clear-headed enough bloke. I've fallen for girls before. It could be all over in a week, but you see, I don't know that, do I? Maybe these feelings will last forever. Well, that's the difference, you see. With all the other girls that I care anything for at all, I know that I'll never love them. With you, I have a chance. Well, that's why I want you to come with me. Until you busted your way into my life, well, frankly, I had no idea of what I was going to do. Well, I must say, you certainly have some terrific root lines. Live with me because I might not end up hating you, replied Rachel. But that's not what I'm offering. That's not the reason you should come with me. The reason you should come with me is because that way you'll stay alive, and what's more, it's the only way. Listen, I'm not going to try and jump on top of you the minute we blast off. Well, thanks, said Rachel dryly. I'm just saying that, well, with a bit of understanding, we might be able to build something together. Please, spare me the hearts and flowers, Mr. Moorcock. Look, don't take the piss out of me, girl, because this is not a piss-taking situation. I'm offering you life, for Christ's sake. All right, Rachel snapped. You've been living with this a long time, you know. It's still fairly new to me. She sat down and stood up and wandered around a bit, trying not to think about her family and the people she knew. They were all so far away. Well, she said, and looked at Sly for a long time. He was certainly quite tasty, and what's more, he'd been straight with her about his emotional end of it. He didn't seem quite the bastard he had before, and after all, somebody had to survive the vanishing point. Well, she said again. End of chapter. We're going to leave it there. All right, we're on about 50 minutes. All right, minus my ridiculously long rave at the beginning. Okay, so the next chapter. Ooh, the next chapter is called Betrayal. Oh my gosh. What's it mean? What's it happen? Right, we're definitely getting to the final act. The final act is upon us. All right, now my neck warming hoodie has slipped down through my theatrics. Okay, so that was night. What are we up to? 26? Yeah, that was night 26. Look at us go. Okay, so not too many more left. I'll be back at some stage tomorrow. What day is it tomorrow? Okay, it's Thursday for me tomorrow. And what have I got to do? I don't remember. I don't know if it's... Oh, it's the community lunch day in town at the hall. We go, and so I was thinking I might go there and have some lunch, but also take my guitar and sit in the corner and play some background music, because it's at the community hall and the town, the little, the ubiquitous Australian small town community hall, and it's got really great acoustics in it. I did the carols there last year with a couple of other guys, and it's a really fun place to play. And I think the acoustic guitar will sound quite nice in there while everyone has their lunch. And I need the practice because I've got lots of songs to practice to get my set together. Okay, anyway, here we are. That's all. Remember to, if you're not really, if you're the kind of person that sometimes struggles to find reasons to keep breathing, there's numbers always in the description boxes of my videos for you to go and either call someone or jump online and just take a break from yourself for a sec so that you can keep going, because it is very important that you keep on breathing and hang here with us. If I've got to be here, you got to be here, and I've got to be here because I've made a very important promise to be here, and I won't break that promise. So, now I'm gonna try and harass all you friggers to hang in there as well. Okay, you're more resilient and stronger than you know. All right. There's a lot of noise in the world, and it gets in our heads a lot, and it makes us believe all sorts of silly things about ourselves and what we're capable of. And so we have our limits, but we also have a lot of capabilities in our own individual, amazing, unique little ways. So be good to yourselves as best you can. Okay, and if you can't be good to yourself, just take it back a few steps and just try not to be too bad to yourself. Okay, little steps. It can be a long journey learning to like yourself or learning to accept yourself, and that's okay because there's all of us here to help. All right, I love you very much. Thank you for hanging with me in the stream or for catching the replay. If that's what you're doing, please consider subscribing if you haven't already, so that I can feel like a real YouTuber. And, maybe some of my hobbies will start paying off. All right. Love you heaps, Bobblicious. Everybody go and say hello to Bobblicious when you see her in the comments, because she's cool. And so is pretty much everybody that's subscribed to my channel, because there's few enough of them for me to actually kind of, be able to distinguish them individually and say you're all very special to me, okay? All right. Whenever I was laughing about this today because, when I try to be genuine, I feel like I come off sounding either sarcastic or patronizing. And it causes me much angst. Anyway, what is it? I don't know. I'm about to make something up. The problems of being earnest. I've said all the stuff, and now we have to press the button that makes everything go away. All right, ready? Can we do it all at once? Da-da-da-da-da-da. Bye. Oops, we need music. Come on, music. Here it comes. Do you like my fade in?